Welcome viewers to the next edition of Development Talks. Today we are very fortunate to have Mr. Saif Tanzeem Qayyum of International Finance Corporation, and he is now holding a position of Upstream Operations Officer, Infrastructure and Natural Resources Asia Pacific, International Finance Corporation, World Bank Group. Previously, he was holding a position in the Water Resources Group 2030, and he directed global sustainability programs and multi-stakeholder partnerships, which led to transformational impact. He also set multi-stakeholder partnerships in Vietnam, Bangladesh, and Pakistan, involving more than 100 public, private, and civil society organizations to address water security and promote sustainable business practices. So, at the very outset, Mr. Saif Tanzeem Qayyum, you may introduce yourself briefly.
Yeah, thank you, Zahid Ahmed, for inviting me to your program. So as has been mentioned, so I've been working in the development field for I think last 17, 18 years with the World Bank Group in different capacities. Big part of that experience has been working in the water sector, but I also had some experience working with the energy sector, with transportation sector, and all these currently has a climate change aspect, which is very important, focusing on the cities, which is the topic of today's discussion.
Okay. So thank you very much. And today I have also with me my co-host, Dr. Saeed Ahmed, in this platform. So at the very outset, again, we are very curious to hear from you about the core issues on how to attract commercial capital to finance municipal infrastructure in Bangladesh, because you are very knowledgeable about it. And basically, what are the issues and what is the way forward, how to address these issues. So feel free to share with us your views. Saif Tanzeem Qayyum. Yeah.
So before I start, I should give a disclaimer that the views are my personal views and does not necessarily reflect the views of my organization. So take that in that spirit. So the cities in Bangladesh, there is a lot that we can potentially do with the cities. Most of the people of the country live in the cities, right? Including most of us. And our cities the infrastructures are not up to date in most cases. They are not properly maintained, and our cities are not clean. So there is much we can do to improve the living condition of our city dwellers. And I think this is very close to all of our hearts. And most of us, and I think all three of us here, and maybe much of the audience, live in Dhaka. And there is much that we need to do with the Dhaka city that can happen. So the different government entities are working in this space with support from development partners, donors, different NGOs are active. But there is still a lot more that can happen. If we think about the major cities in Bangladesh, and if you think about, say, the city corporations, right? So we have two, Dhaka North and South. Then we have part of the same urban sprawl, which is Ghazipur and Narayanganj, major urban area of the country. Then we have Chittagong, which is, of course, very important. The other notable cities include Sylhet and Kumilla. There is Rajshahi, Khulna, Rangpur, Mymensingh, and Borishal. So these are basically the city corporations. And then there is the next layer, which are the Paurasabhas at different size and stages of development. The local government ministry, the local government division, plays a very critical role in managing the cities. And city corporations, even though they have like an elected um, representatives, also get a big part of their budget from the central government through the local government division. So the local government division has a very critical role in managing the development of the cities. Um, for 5 cities, there are also the WASAs, Water Supply and Sanitation Authorities, whereas the WASAs are involved in water supply and sanitation, right? Whereas the solid waste management is done by the city corporations. For other city corporations, where the WASAs don't exist, they are also responsible for water supply. And there's a lot that needs to happen in that space also. The transportation, greening of the transportation is a big area to think about. And we have a lot of traffic jam in the cities, particularly in Dhaka, and the associated air pollution, so which also impacts the quality of life. And also we must not forget about our electricity. So it's a very, very important aspect, and how we can transition from a primarily coal and gas sourced electricity to more and more renewable source electricity. So that's something also I think is important for the country. So I'll stop here, and happy to hear
Yeah.
from you what questions you have.
No, I think you have given a kind of broad bird's eye view of the issue. So in this context, I think I would like to ask you, what are the main sources of funding of these city corporation and municipalities as it stands now, and how it should be in your view, the source of financing?
Yeah. So the municipalities are mostly, and there are some differences between the municipalities, but even the most even the biggest ones are dependent on government transfer as a source of their revenue. Then, of course, their revenues also have property taxes and other sources of revenue that they collect from the citizens and from the businesses. But by and large, they are dependent on transfers from LGD. And the issue with that is the public purse is limited. So that means that public purse, that the funding that LGD has available, is divided among all the cities and the Purashobhas, and they get a piece of it, which they can then use for their capital expenditure, for maintenance, etc. And only a few bigger cities like Dhaka North, Dhaka South, to an extent Narayanganj, and Chittagong and Gazipur, they have better balance sheets, say, than the others. So that means that they have their own sources of revenues that they can use to a greater extent, and they can contribute at least partially to the capital expenditure for the new projects. Whereas for the most of others, that's a very difficult proposition. So they basically depend entirely on the government budget. And the government works closely with the multilaterals, particularly the World Bank, ADB, others, and bilateral donors. LGD works closely with them. But gradually, as Bangladesh becomes more developed, this is basically the last IDA cycle, the low-cost funding available from the World Bank. So this is the last IDA cycle, which is for another 2 years. And what we have seen in other countries, as the World Bank, as the country graduates from the World Bank IDA, the other donors, development partners also follow that. What that means that as soon as the country graduates, this low-cost funding is no longer available. So this, say, current funding available at nominal cost between, say, 1% and 3% interest rate, this will disappear in the immediate medium term, say in a couple of years. This funding will, this is already very scarce, and this will become increasingly more scarce. So what that will mean that the cities, if they want to improve their services, if they want to accelerate their development, it's no longer feasible to wait for public funding sources. They have to look for other funding sources.
Okay, so I think that brings us to our next curiosity and question, that in order to have commercial kind of capital, are they ready? Or if not, I'm basically asking in terms of capacity, because the whole cycle is planning of resources, mobilization and utilization. This is a cycle, and that requires quite some formidable kind of exercise. So that is one aspect, is capacity. Another aspect is their rating in terms of uh, credit worthiness, like whether they are worth receiving commercial capital. Any views on that, Mr. Saif Tanzeem Qayyum?
So there are different sources of financing. I mean, so beyond the, say, the plain vanilla public financing, there are other sources of financing also. For example, the cities can raise bonds. They can go to the capital market and they can raise bonds. And there are different kinds of bonds, right? Green bonds, blue bonds, sustainability bonds, different kinds. So that's one thing that they can do. They can try to tap into climate funding from GCF, from GEF, from European Union, etc. So there are different climate funding pots that they can try to tap. But that is a more limited source. The advantage of commercial capital is that is a huge source available if that can be tapped. But it comes with its challenges, right? So typically commercial finance will want a commercial return. So that means that cities who take the commercial finance will be able to need to have the ability to give that return ideally from the project. Yeah. So projects which are with more certain revenue streams are more qualified for attracting such capital, right? So what could happen potentially is that the cities can make a decision that, okay, of all these projects they need to do over the next 5 years. So these projects are more of a public good type with unclear revenue streams or inadequate revenue streams. So those projects are good candidates for public financing, or even, say, the climate financing and so on. But projects that are of more commercial nature, where the revenue streams are clear and adequate, those projects, it does not make sense to use public finance, right? Because there you can go and get financing from the market, right? But to do that, there are certain requirements, right? So a commercial lender looking at the municipality, they will ask for the books of accounts. And currently the municipalities do not have proper accounting standard books of accounts, right? Where you will have a profit and loss account, you will have a cash flow statement, you have a balance sheet. You don't have that. They basically maintain their revenues from government transfers and so on, and expenses. So that's one of the fundamental things that is currently lacking, and the cities can do something about it, right? And if they do that, if they do the exercise and prepare proper books of accounts, actually they most likely will look better than they look now. The reason being currently in their accounts, if you look at their accounts, you don't see their assets. And city corporations have assets, so particularly say land assets, which are very valuable. So those are not really accounted when you look at the financial picture right now. So it's possible that they will look better, and that will enable doing a proper credit assessment of the cities. And that will also be a requirement to get a credit rating. So if the cities are looking to borrow from the local commercial market, local commercial bank, then a local credit rating agency doing the rating will be sufficient. But if we want to expand that and we want to have IFIs, international finance to be interested, then getting an international credit rating agency like Moody's, Fitch, S&P, getting one of them to do the rating, that will be very important. In India, what happened, the federal government took the initiative. And for all the 500 or so cities in India, they have done the books of accounts and they have done the credit rating. So that is something that has happened there. And that is really helping the cities there to basically diversify their financing sources.
Okay, so that's very enlightening, Tanzeem. So my next query would be, has any assessment or has there been any efforts in this respect? I mean, what you have just mentioned about in Bangladesh, first of all, any kind of auditing of all the municipalities, where they stand and whether they have adequate capacity or not, and what needs to be done in future, done by the local government division, but with the assistance of multilateral financing institutions.
So there has been some attempt in that direction. So the BMDF, the Bangladesh Municipal Development Fund, so we have spoken to them, and they have in the past commissioned a small study to do for a few cities, but they did not. I mean, that did not sort of go the full length. So there has been some ad hoc initiative here and there. The completeness or the rigor of this initiative is questionable, and you don't see anything basically that that is there. So if you go to a city, you still don't see the books of accounts are there. You don't really get the things that you need to do a proper credit assessment. So that means there has been there has been an understanding that this is needed. There has been some limited scale initiatives in the past, but we need to actually excuse me, go ahead and get this done, right? So this is where I think the development partners will be interested to work with the government, and the government is increasingly realizing the need for it. At the end of the day, the ownership of the initiative has to be with the government. The development partners can help. Maybe each development partner can pick up a few cities and help them to do that. Excuse me.
Okay. Said, do you have any specific question in this at this stage?
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Mr. Qayyum. What you have explained is really very interesting and intriguing. So I can see that India has done that paradigm shift already. They have gone through it, which is certainly a big change. In my experience in working with the local organizations, city corporations and others, there is a huge lack of capacity, as you know. Not only do they lack expertise in financial management, engineering, planning, budgeting, everything, they also do not have, what should I say, they don't feel the need to become independent in terms of financial management and these things. And the practice or the custom has become such that they always look forward to receiving government funds and spending that with no or very little accountability. and it's all driven by political wishes and all that. You all know that. I mean, we all know that. The biggest challenge will be to change their mindset. If you look at any Western countries, local council, local council or a shire or whatever they call it in different countries, they are independent. By independent, I mean they collect their own taxes and revenues and this and that. They have a full transparent accounting system. They take responsibility for that budget. They deliver it. If there is any shortfall, they take responsibility. If there is any excess, they make it public. That thing, can Bangladesh ever reach to that standard, or at least make some steps towards that? What do you think?
I mean, there is no reason why Bangladesh can't reach to that standard, right? And it's not also needed to take the same amount of time that was taken by other countries, because it's also possible to leapfrog, right? Instead of sort of taking all the time that was probably not necessary. So it's a very valid point that the city corporations, and particularly the smaller city corporations, are very inadequately staffed, right? And the staff that there is, they don't have a lot of capacity. So this is something that has to be gradually overcome, right? And I'm not sure that there is like a one magic bullet here that will solve everything. But if we sort of look at projects which has a well-defined revenue stream, so those are good candidates for other sources of finance beyond the public finance. So LGD has already realized and is actively speaking about it, that for the bigger city corporations, for the bigger cities, why are they still dependent on the government budget? So maybe they need to graduate from their dependence on government budget, and then that budget can be better used with other cities, and gradually the other cities will also, as they develop, and will be able to have less reliance on the government budget, right? So this will be important, and it will require some change in mind frame. But even if a small city or a medium-sized city can identify a project, yeah, and that project could be, say, an amusement park. Who knows? Could be an amusement park with well-defined revenue stream. There are so many things that can happen within a city, right? For example, in India, some hospitals are managed by the cities, and the hospitals give good revenue stream, and they also have given essential public service, right? And the hospital project, for example, doesn't have to be done only by the city. The city can do it in collaboration with the health authority, right? So there can be all kinds of collaborations that allow cities to come in and develop projects that have well-defined revenue streams. And this really can help to improve the budget, improve the revenue conditions of the cities as well.
Okay. So thank you very much, Tanzeem Qayyum. We are slowly heading towards the end of today's development talk, and we are really very much enlightened by the views you have expressed. We have learned a lot, and we hope that in future maybe we may meet again on some other topic on this platform. So our heartiest and sincerest thanks and gratitude, Tanzeem Qayyum, for coming to our platform and enriching our platform. Thank you very much, and see you soon. Bye for today.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tanzeem.
Thank you very much.